This is Bam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Paul Cram, and we're going to talk about the realities of indie versus Hollywood filmmaking. And I want to welcome you to the Bam Electric Ghost podcast. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, Phantom. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to kind of dive in and talk about some of this stuff.
Well, it's always interesting because we just to give you a heads up, we've been a podcaster since 2016. We have over 1,200 interviews. We talk to creative people all over the world, includes filmmakers, actors, musicians, painters, people like that. So
Love
we're
it.
very much into talking the flow state, creative process, anything to do with the arts. That's kind of like our warehouse. So that's where we can start. But like before we get to the heart of your story, I always ask people a couple questions. What motivates you and why do you do what you do?
I love this question a lot. I feel like a smidge of a background might explain my answer. I have a bunch of siblings, so I'm like in the middle. I'm like, did you ever see the show The Brady Bunch?
Yeah, I was into it. I'm a child of the '70s, so that was my the jam.
That was your jam, Phantom. So I am in the middle. So I would be Marsha Brady. So I would be like, or no, I'd be Jan Brady, and I'd always say Marsha, because it's like, pay attention to me, like I'm here, like dang it, I exist. And so I feel like that definitely plays into me, when I was younger, getting up on stage and putting myself out there and really becoming an actor. Where
Mhm.
I love telling stories. There's something about being on set working on camera. It is very much you're the center of attention, so
Mm.
that kind of scratches that little bit of an itch for me. But I think the heart of it really too is I love telling stories. I love that whole process. And yeah, acting, it is very fulfilling, especially film. I love being on stage. I've done film. I've done stage work before as
Stage
an
work,
actor,
yeah.
but that gives you like this immediate gratification because the
Like a
audience,
musician, like on stage, like that's the same kind of feel. I'm a musician. It's like the idea you get
yep.
that immediate feedback versus like if you're doing film or if you're in the studio, you don't get that. Like if I'm in a studio writing a song, I don't
Mhm.
get that immediate feedback from anybody other than the engineer or the producer. You
It's
know,
it's I love that you just know this because you are a fellow creative, and it's exactly that. People ask me all the time. They're like, "Well, which one do you like better?" And I'm like, it's not apples to apples. Like when you're recording something in the studio and when you're playing live on stage, these are very different experiences. It's the same for an actor. Like when you're working on stage as opposed to working on camera, it's extremely different. You're um, uh, me, myself, and I really like film. I like how subtle and quiet it can be, and
mhm.
so I enjoy that quite a bit. I also really like, and you have to tell me because I'm not 100% sure when you're recording something in the studio, but like when you're performing in the studio, oftentimes you don't have the luxury of like shooting in order. And I kind of like that. I find it like an interesting hurdle, like as an actor, where it's like, oh, okay, wait. Oftentimes it's like, oh, we're filming the end of the
And
movie
yeah,
first, and now we're shuffling and doing all these things, and I like that as a exercise in a way too. Like it keeps me on my toes. So
yeah, that's an interesting thing because sometimes in music, we can go non-sequential. So like the idea is like I could, you know, when I'm putting something together, I could be taking live recordings and mixing them with studio recordings and doing overdubs from this time and that time and mixing different projects from different time periods. Kind of like Frank Zappa used to do that. He used to kind of take things from different periods and it wasn't sequential. And so it kind of follows like filmmaking from what I've heard
yeah,
understood is
yeah.
it doesn't always have to be recorded in the order of like, you would think it would be. It happened like sequentially that day. Like, no, it didn't. It happened over time.
Yep, happened over time, and interesting. Yeah, I kind of thought that that's maybe how that would go for music, but yeah, you're feeling me in there, and
That's cool.
uh, yeah, no, it's cool. It can be fun. It can be very fun. It's making me think of there was a little indie film that I worked on out on the East Coast in Maine, actually,
Oh man.
and it was a really fun little kind of a thriller horror movie. Uh, in and I flew out there. and I was there was three main characters. I was one of the three, and got on set, and they were like, well, the first day of filming, the first scene that we shot was like one of my most dramatic and like heartbreaking scenes in the entire film. And I turned to the director, I'm like, oh my, what are we doing? And he's like, well, I wanted to make a splash. Like I want people to feel like we are doing this. And I was like, all right, well, here we go.
Going right there, going right into it.
Going right into it, going into
right
really,
to the heart of it.
Into the heart of it, into the dramatic death scenes of mine. I have to just say, if anybody has, I do not assume that people know who the heck I am. I'm a character actor that's been in some really obscure films, as well as like some tiny roles in bigger films. But I always laugh because I talk to actor friends of mine, and I'm like, I'll come get home or get to a hotel or wherever I'm at after a day of filming, and I am exhausted. And other performers are like, oh, we're all going out, and I'm just like, I need to go to bed. And my my actor friends they're like, well, of course, Paul, you're playing like these roles where you like die and like cry and scream,
energy. You have to put a lot of effort. You say kind of drained.
Yes, very, very much so. Very drained, very.
And I think if you're kind of putting on that like grunge, punk aesthetic, or you're screaming like Roger Daltrey,
yep,
in a Who song, is like you're giving so much, you don't have a lot for the after party.
You don't have a lot for the after party, and usually you have to wake up the next morning and do it all again. And
do it again. It's like I don't want to like run myself ragged,
Well, exactly. And a lot of the parts that I've played over time too are either I'm dying in a horror movie or screaming and running, or I'm like crying and I'm like the person who's like trying to recover from like being an addict and like trying to get, you know what I mean? Like these emotionally
trained, hard, kind of, you got to put yourself into it. So what do you think about method acting? You're not really into, do you take pieces of that, or you find ways to do it without going that far?
I take pieces of everything. Like I was recently reading a book by Uta Hagen, and like she had some really nice little tips in there. I do have a story though, and I'm going to share it with you about a method actor. I think I do understand the method. Like I understand what method acting can be, but where I go with it is this is just how I work, and this is my take on it. And it reminds me a lot of Pablo Picasso. Pablo Picasso says every child is an artist. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I so get that. I feel like when we're kids, we all understand how to act. We all, because we can use our imagination and just go there and do that. That's where I go a lot of times when I'm performing, is it's like,
you bring yourself back there.
Yep.
You have limitless possibilities, and less gates, less ceilings.
Yep. Exactly. And my issue is I've worked on some films. I worked on a film with an actor who was very method, and he this isn't even the method. This is not the method. This is not method acting. And we had a fight scene together. And so like we kind of walked through the choreography of the film. There was not a stunt coordinator on set. So this is an indie film. This was not like a union project. So usually if it's SAG-AFTRA, which I am SAG-AFTRA now, woohoo, it has made such a big, really good change for me for the better in the film projects that I'm working on. But this was when I was in the union, and they did not have a stunt coordinator. So it was he and I kind of working through some choreography with the director. And I'm so game for that. Like I came up going through indie films and working with directors that are, in school and all that stuff. I loved all of that. But I also do not love what happened, because the other actor, we blocked out the choreography, and I knew it the moment I remember hearing him say on set, he's like, I'm a method actor. And I remembered him saying that. But when the director called action, I saw it in the other actor's eyes. I was like, oh God, here we go. And he went to a place where he was he had a gun, and it wasn't fake, it was like a metal gun. And in the scene, like I jump on his back, and like we struggle a little bit. He flips me over onto like this bed, and he's supposed to fake pistol whip my face.
Always supposed to fake it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because of angles and stuff like that. You don't really have to hit my face. And I was Phantom, I was so dumb. I was so naive. Now I know exactly what I would have screamed. Now I would have screamed cut, and I would have screamed the director's name. I would have screamed, like, I wouldn't have, but in the moment, what happened was the other actor, he lost control. He actually just went to this really dark place, like
Christ.
wherever that was, and he started beating me up for real.
For
And
real?
he's
Oh, jeez.
and he took this gun and he started pistol whipping my cheek. Like, it did split a little bit. And like, and I was this guy, just for anyone that's maybe listening, and if you can't see me, like, I'm a kind of a slight guy. Like, at this point, I think I weighed 130 pounds wet. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. So like, yeah, you're like
little tiny 90-pound wimp guy. And this guy was like this jacked built, like,
oh no.
it was so dumb. Like, so I was trying to get him off of me for real. And like the director and everybody was like, they all thought it was such good acting.
Oh jeez. They didn't see the realness.
So finally the director called cut. I booked to the other side of the set. And the actor, like, I think it took him a few seconds, and then he was like, wait, what? And like,
what did I do?
yeah. And then he tries to come near me, and I was like, I don't think we can we swear?
Yeah,
I don't need to, but I was like,
yeah.
I was like, get away from me. What the bleepity bleep? Like, like, this isn't okay. Like, this
that's taking it a little too far. Yeah.
I mean, just, it's taking it too far. And like,
next zone. It's like it's out of the range. Yeah,
yeah. It's one of those things too. It's a learning experience for me, because when the director called action, and when I saw the actor kind of going there, I should have just stepped back. I should have just said, nope, not doing this. And I would do that now. Now I would just be like, this is ridiculous. But there's a few things on that. One of them is like, it's a stunt coordinator's job is to watch and make sure everyone's safe. And so having a stunt coordinator on set is, I get that sometimes it's a luxury, but it shouldn't be, especially, you hear about all those horror stories where things go bad. And fortunately for me, fortunately or unfortunately, I feel like this is not a good story. So
but it kind of shows you how people, like, in method acting can happen, like in music, and it can be very detrimental, because you get stuck in that stagecraft, right? If you get stuck in that character you're playing, and then you don't know how to turn it off, well, it can damage everybody around you and yourself.
Yep.
And it's not very positive. I mean, it's not as extreme as that extreme event that you're actually getting assaulted.
Right.
It still can be very detrimental, and it's not necessary for you to create great art to go that far.
Well, and I would argue too, as one who has worked on a lot of projects and stuff, is oh gosh, I'm gonna misquote this too, and it's such a good quote from I think it's either Uta Hagen or I'm going to totally blank on all their names, the great teachers, but one of them, she's like, it's only once you can get past your own precious experiences in this life that you can start to do great art. Like, and I really like that. I'm paraphrasing there, but I really like that thought, where it's like, yeah, do we all have a human experience? We have a shared experience. You're a musician, it sounds like, Phantom. I'm an actor. We're all creative, and we're human beings, and we can tap into that. There is a point though where it's like, if I make it all just about me and my experiences, there's something in there. But I do think, as I get what she was pushing at, where it's just like, actually, if you can push even further than that to more of a collective.
Yeah, like a collective. I was talking to somebody who was talking about, like, if you're in a band and you're doing like this top-down thing where you're controlling everything, and versus, like, if you're trying to bring out the best of everybody that's on stage.
Yes.
right? So if
Yes.
you're and I've heard, film directors, they say that working on a film is like a team sport. But if everybody's not playing the team's not on it, then you're gonna mess up that scene. Just like
Oh,
you're gonna mess up that
absolutely.
song if you're not, or if you don't allow people to kind of give their best, and you're showboating, and you're not, or you're not being a team player, then like things can go not the way they could.
And to that, I love what you're getting at there, because it is a team sport. And this is for myself, which is I am very much, and I'm curious if you fall into this at all, but I very much over the course of my life have been a really, really big people pleaser, where um it's not always the best for me. Like something like when I'm working on a movie set, I have learned over time I need to not give so much of my energy while I'm
Mhm.
not filming. Like what I said, where it's like I need to go to bed. I have to perform tomorrow. Because at the end of the day, what we're there to do is to portray, like I'm working. This is a job.
Yeah.
It's not social hour. Social hour can be great. It's good networking. Where I'm going with that though is because this is a team sport, I have to I have to make sure that I am arriving on set or stage or wherever ready to be at my
Yeah.
optimal
Hey,
best.
game.
Like
Yeah.
bring my A game so that I can do my best with the team. And some of that might actually mean me I'm going to use air quotes, divaing out, being like, actually, this doesn't work for me. For me to
Mm.
do the best that I need this guy not to like go ape shit on my face.
Yeah.
Like
You don't need.
I need somebody to like watch. You know what I mean? Like I need to
We
stop,
need
listen.
like a actual productive environment.
We need a
Like,
productive environment. And I also might need, it's like, you know what? I am all the things that could potentially be viewed as like diva behavior. It's like, you know what? If I okay, I'll give you another example. I was working on recently it's super fun. There's a movie that came out. It is going to be playing in theaters in South Korea
oh,
on
cool.
June. It starts on I think it's June 8th or 11th. And the name of the movie is Abroad.
Right. Okay.
And I shot this film here in Minnesota, and the lead actor, his name is Seung Bum, and we have a fight scene. I'm in a lot of fight scenes in movies,
All right, cool.
and we we shot. Oh, we were going for about I think we were on hour 6, and I was like, oh my god, my body is tired. Like, and this is where you start to get sloppy, and it's like, and when you're doing fight choreography that involves a table and my face and like getting fake smashed down on the table.
Mhm.
And when you start to get tired and it's important, it's like, well, I need to pay attention to this, because if I start to get sloppy, I can get hurt. I could also hurt the other actor. And we both turned and looked at each other and we were like, we just need we need a we're done.
Diminishing returns. Yeah. It's
Like
like.
we're getting tapped out. And so we did that. We were like, we need to break. We need to stop. Like this is we
That's
either
cool that you gotta advocate for yourself, 'cause otherwise, like,
Mhm.
it's diminishing returns. Like, you
Well,
can yeah, eventually
diminishing returns. But what I loved is that on that set, it was a SAG after set, and they did have a stunt choreographer there, and he was checking in on us after every few takes. He's like, "How are you doing?" You know what I mean? And I did. I told him I was like, "I am exhausted at this point in time," and they did ask, and and I did. We did one more take after that, and we agreed. We were like, "We will do this one more time," but we're not gonna keep doing this.
all
But
night.
yeah, we're not going to do this all night. And not that they weren't really expecting that, but it was us sharing like this is where we're at, and
Yeah, you show your boundaries, right?
boundaries. Exactly. Exactly. And yeah, we're all there. We want to do an amazing job. And even me trying to be at my best at my A game, like I missed one of the marks, and I smashed my face again, like on the table. That is the take that they used in the film. If you go watch it, I literally do really smash my
Oh,
face on the
no.
table. And yeah, so I'm excited for that movie to be playing in theaters in South Korea, because it's a
It's
really
like a
great
K-drama
film.
movie, or is it an American movie?
You know what's so cool about the movie is that it's called Abroad. It has the two lead actors are actually from South Korea. They speak Korean in the film quite a bit.
Mhm.
And so you have this film where there's subtitles in English because otherwise we
Yeah,
wouldn't know
yeah,
what
I
they're
watch a
saying.
lot of K-drama. I actually watch a
Yeah.
lot of K-drama series, but I watch the movies 'cause I lived in Japan for, like, 2 years, and then I got used to watching a lot of Eastern.
You got used to some of the subtitles and all the
Yeah,
yeah.
so I actually still watch a lot of things in Korean, in Japanese, in
I love that,
Chinese and,
Phantom.
Taiwanese language
Yeah.
because I like the Eastern, like, storylines. Sometimes there's stuff
Oh,
going on
there's some
that I don't
uh
see in Western movies, so I tend to watch.
well, and even the style of acting is can be very unique and different too from what we generally do. That was something that Seungbum and I talked about a little bit. There was a language barrier working with him, and he and
Yeah,
I,
all
and
kinds
it
of
was it
different
was
types. Cool.
life imitating art because the film Abroad, the entire movie hinges on like
Miscommunication.
the miscommunication. Yeah, but I'm with you though because I also enjoy. I like watching like anime, and I like
Yeah,
watching
I'm a
like
child of the '70s. I was watching Speed Racer, and then I got
yes.
Gotcha Man, and I was getting into, like, a lot of, like, early anime, which was come from Tatsunoko, the guy who created, like, Speed Racer,
Oh, I
created
love
all
it.
these, like, Japanese cartoons,
I
like,
know Speed Racer. I don't know. I haven't watched. I don't think I get the reference, but I
yeah.
haven't watched a
Well,
ton of
Gotcha
Speed
Man
Racer.
got turned into something called Battle of the Planets here back in the
Okay.
'70s. It was translated into a thing called Battles, but it was created by the guy who created Speed Racer, Tatsunoko, created all these kinda hero-like animes. They're actually, like, superhero animes with, like, Japanese superhero teams
I love
in
that.
in
Okay.
the '70s, which had a different kinda thing going on. They had, like, these, like this thing called the God Phoenix, a ship that would turn into a real fiery phoenix.
Ah,
Actually
ah,
transmuted. It's kind of
ah.
before Transformers. And this
Before,
idea, like, transmutation
yeah,
transmutation.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe that's part of the. I could see that being part of the inspiration for
I think it
Transformers or
was. I think
something.
a
Was
lot of
it?
the stuff he was doing with transmutation, they had this thing where they actually would say transmute, and they would, like, turn into, like, these like, they would transform themselves. And so that to me, but it was more metaphysical. They would be able to work, like, together as a team, and they would share their energies and turn into a
That
phoenix.
that makes me think of oh, help me out here, Phantom. What is the one where it's like the huge, but it's like each the arm and the arm, and they all come together, and the head
Or
and
like
the
transform like Voltron and stuff like that.
Voltron. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
like
there's a lot of they became all these kind of
yeah,
mecha kinda
yeah.
anime. You have Voltron, you have, like, Transformers, you have a lot of different ones that they all came out of that, that whole era, but I always liked the ideas, I was watching John Woo films, the Jackie Chan films. I like the, like, Project A was this thing where he's doing these kind of, like, old time 1920s type of stunts off of, like, clock towers and stuff, like falling off the clock tower like a like a classic silent film stunts, with
I
going
yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like Buster Keaton
Buster
and
Keaton type
yeah,
stuff. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And it's like the different places they would go. You could bring they would had that affinity for Buster Keaton, and then
yeah.
you had stuff that was more like period pieces, comedies, police dramas, but from different perspectives, not all Clint Eastwood type of perspective.
Yeah. Well, and that's something too, like what you're referencing. I have noticed that with specifically with some of the South Korean shows that like a friend of mine. I'm trying to think if I remember the name of the show. There was a show. Was it Boys Before Flowers or
Boys
something?
Over Flowers.
Boys Over Flowers. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I love that. That's a classic one. That's
It's
a
it's it, I watched it and I loved it. And what it reminds me of from what you're saying is that specific one, they jump through genres. Like, I'm like, "Oh, this is really sad," and then I'm like, "Oh, this is hilarious," and then I'm like, "Wait, what is happening? Oh, this is like a
it's like a mix.
it's like a telenovela all of a sudden," and then it's like, "No," and then it's like this action. Like, they keep
Yeah,
switching
it
things
kept
up.
on changing. It became, like, very dramatic. It was
Yes.
funny. It was kinda teen thing, and
Mhm.
then it became like, "Oh, what is this?" It's actually deeper than it seems. It has a lot of different, like,
Yeah.
influences, I think. They're pulling, like, multiple influence.
Pulling multiple influences and doing it in a way that I feel like I've never seen us do in like American TV. Maybe at some point we will, where it's like, let's play with these more. Like,
Yeah, I like
I don't know.
sometimes the longer form that sometimes sometimes the Chinese dramas go like 40 episodes. You know, like I started watching these Chinese dramas and they go like 40. And so they go really long and they take a long time. And it was like, wow, this is like there's a lot going on. And with the thing that I find is like American attention span has gotten really short, or maybe the worldwide attention span. But some of these things are really there's a lot going on, there's a lot of depth, and there's a lot of hours.
Well,
And I'm like, wow, there's like I guess I like things like that because I've always drawn into things that maybe like slower paced films from the 70s I can get into. But kids today is like I can't deal with the pacing.
there's I see what you're saying. I definitely do. I mean, even the editing. I mean, we see it so much. Like if you look at films from just 1970, 1980, you know, you look at the editing now and it's so much faster paced. Like like
Everything's way faster.
yeah, and I probably fall into that too, where I'm a little bit like, okay, come on, cut to the next angle or something. But yeah, no, and even what I'm thinking of is well, one, I'm thinking of that anime Evangelion. Is that how you
Oh yeah,
pronounce it?
that's a
Evangelion.
that's yeah,
And
that's
also more recently Avatar, The Last Airbender. Like
yeah, that's the one.
that was really, like, I started watching it not knowing how many episodes there were. And I was so in love because I was like, oh my God, there's
That's a lot.
more. Oh, there's more. I don't know how many episodes there are, but they like,
These go long. Yeah, like Bleach, it goes on like 7, like
yes.
8 seasons.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
like one of the ones I had, Gotcha Man, it went like 100 episodes and they were interconnected.
Well, and
In
I
the 70s, that was like a big deal that you
that
actually had a cartoon that was interconnected and didn't just stop with each episode wasn't its own self-contained story. It was this big long arc.
I find that gosh, what is that other one that I really loved growing up? DuckTales. DuckTales did was one of the first cartoons that I really realized I was like, and they didn't do it hardcore, but they did it in what a little bit of what you're talking about, where it was like there's a little bit of a through line.
Thread
And I
going.
was like, this is unusual for, at least I don't remember a kids cartoon quite like DuckTales where they did that. Also, DuckTales got like there were some episodes I was like, this is really, I've looked at some of them like that's really heavy hitting stuff. Like good for them. Like they
I
like
love the fact when people would take like a cartoon and put more like levels in it. So if you're an adult
mhm. You
watching
could,
it, you get this. If you're a kid, you don't see that, but the
yep,
adult can actually enjoy it. So the
yep.
dad watching it with his kid, they actually get and enjoy it. It's not just like
Yes.
Teletubbies.
Yes. Yes, yes.
Like,
Well, and
like
I also like it too when cartoons and stuff where they like some of the harder things. Like I know DuckTales dealt with I think one of the characters had like one of their parents had died and like they were in, you know what I mean? Like I was like, these are fairly
oh,
real
yeah,
life things. And like I kind of appreciate where it's like, oh, they're not totally making it like what you're saying, like we're just soup, everything's happy,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Like Sesame Street compared to like, Teletubbies is like, okay, what is there a little depth here?
Yeah.
Like electric companies, like there's some like you're the kid's not like you're just assuming the kid has like no adventure, no creativity, like you just gotta spell it out.
Depth, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So it's yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that all makes me uh it reminds me of books too. I'm a big huge reader fan. I love to read.
You got a book club, right? You have Men Who Read book club?
Men Who Read. Yep, I have a book club. We just this month we are celebrating our 6th year. Yay.
What do you find people wanna read? Are they I mean, because I know I've talked to a lot of authors, and this is like the age of the 70,000, 60,000 word book versus the 200,000 word book. And do you
We have a limit. We have a limit. We because we all, it's very democratic. It's we all will bring books, you know, I'll throw out kind of a theme or a topic or like a prompt. And like the book that we have coming up, like the prompt was a book with an animal in it, you know. And so we read, people just put it's all nonfiction. So my book club is nonfiction. But there's a limit on it. You can't, we books that are over 350 pages, it just it's really hard to finish
Okay.
them because
Yeah.
we're doing it every month. And we did end up reading a book a couple of months ago. It was over 600 pages, and it was a beast. It was hard. It's just there's only so much time that we all have.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
We're so
all.
pulling into different things in your life, and
Yep.
it's just like with the age of the phone, we're just kind of not primed. Because I like I said, I'm a child of the '70s, 4 TV channels, radio, listen to a record or an 8-track. Didn't have a lot of distractions. So if I was going to read, Charlotte's Web, I'm actually going to get into it, right? If I read the Time Quartet, I would be really into it. Like, the swiftly tilting planet, that stuff, But
Mhm.
I Ben Bova and Isaac Asimov, I was really into that stuff. I was into a lot of fantasy and science fiction. But
I love all that. I still read a lot, like fantasy and science fiction, and one of my favorite genres is young adult fiction, which is kind of where I was going with that thought, which is I really appreciate in young adult fiction, like The Hunger Games. Shout out to author Suzanne Collins. Oh my God, like the latest book that she wrote, I read it and I was like, there's things in here I don't think that they'd even put, like, because it is so, like, I feel like sometimes like authors in young adult fiction are willing to do kind of like what we were talking about, where it's like I feel like they're willing to experiment a little bit more because it's like
yeah, you
maybe
can
the
do it.
audience is a little bit more forgiving or more.
More forgiving. It's kinda
Yeah.
like I love about science fiction games like Gene Roddenberry and
Yes.
Rod Serling.
Yep.
They could kinda take on, you know, topical modern topics and hide it in the science fiction. So you could have a Monsters on Maple Street,
Yep.
you could have a
Yep.
thing talking about fascism or something, and you throw it into a science fiction. So that nobody's gonna really say we're trying to say something, but you are. Like Gene Roddenberry was always saying things and like these
Gene Roddenberry
morality
made
tales all over.
huge social commentary. Uh, gosh, Sterling. Right. Trying to think if for some reason that name is really ringing a bell. What
Rod
did?
Serling, Twilight Zones. Like
Oh, the Twilight Zones. Yes. Thank
yeah, the
you.
Twilight Zones, like
Thank you.
Monsters on Maple Street, and they had all these like morality tales
Yep.
that would like, talk about, like fascism, isolationism, prejudice, and they would sneak it in through the science fiction. And he had such a good collection of writers. There was all these really good science fiction writers. And the comic book writers at the same time, like at EC Comics and Atlas Comics, Marvel Comics, like we're doing the same things.
No,
So
it's
you read those early comics in the 50s and 60s, they were actually doing the same type of thing going on.
and I can't think of a particular instance of it, but I guarantee that anime definitely does that too. I'm sure. Like I feel like good artists and creators are putting their commentary in. I
It's
mean,
like subtext,
yeah, yeah.
underlying themes that aren't directly hitting you over the head.
Mhm.
And they because you were able to, that's what I love about, poets. Victorian poets were famous for like the duality of their words, their wordplay. It was like, oh, this really means that. But it's kind of hidden and got layers.
Especially when you start to look at some things like I'm queer, like I'm gay, and I love looking at it breaks my heart, but also I'm like, artists have been so brilliant in how they were able to communicate, because we can look at the writings. There's so many authors that were writing that were queer, and they were making commentary when it was like illegal, like when it
Yes,
was
like
like we can't
can't say it
legally
directly.
say this, so how do we do this in a way? And that's where I'm fascinated by how sharp and how clever and how like amazing to get some of that message, get some of that across.
Yeah.
Well, under you, I don't
Yeah,
even need to
you're under
explain
kind
it.
of like a book ban situation,
Yeah.
or under like
Yeah.
a blacklist type of scenario
Hmm.
where you have to use like coded words or duality of things that aren't obvious.
Yes.
They kind of so like when you read a lot of this older text from some of these authors and you didn't realize who they were in actuality, you find all the hidden messages, or that you have to read it a couple times to actually see the direction. It's not obvious. So
Oh,
sometimes. You have to take some work to find it.
there's a short story that I'm so I do voice acting too. Like I do that here and there, but I'm trying to build my YouTube channel, and with that I've been looking at some like what's it called when things are no longer copywritten, when they're
When they become public.
Yeah, public domain. Thank you, Phantom. So I've been looking at some public domain things, and I came across this short story, and I was like, oh, I should use that and just use it as a little. I love audiobooks, but just as a
like
little
an audiobook, like
a little. And it's called I think it's called The Damned Thing or That Damned Thing. And it's really short. It's only a few pages long, and it falls into the horror genre. And it is, and I read it and I was like, wait a minute, why do people say, because there was some comments, they were like, oh, this is actually coded, like this is coded and the author was gay. And they were like, this is a code, like if you read it, you'll start to see it.
Yeah.
I read it and I was like, what am I missing? I was like, I don't see it. And then I thought about it and I was like, oh my, oh, this is really brilliant and really dark and really sad. And like, I was like, oh, I found it. I see it. And it's, yeah, it's a monster. I'll do it. People can hopefully be interested to hear it, but it's a monster that nobody sees, and it was such a Phantom, I can be so slow too on the uptake. Like sometimes I'm that guy that's like, hey everybody, what's going on? You know, and I'm like, oh, I'm not reading the room or I'm not getting it. I can be really slow to see it, but what I loved in That Damn Thing is it didn't hit me over the head. I had to really think about it. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute. Nobody sees this monster, but it's the monster that ends up killing everyone. And it's such a social commentary piece on sexuality and how that it's just a really good, well done piece. And I'm referencing it because I recently read it. So yeah,
I love that about the creative process. And, you know, like some people like to, you know, we kind of live in an age where people are hitting people over the head with very obvious, and there's not a lot of like the depth of like taking that second pass, or, you know, like I love watching like old black and white films and watching like the actors with their action movements, their eye movements, and the use of the shadow, the directors use the shadows, and they are not using a lot of special effects. Not using any, you know, they basically just taking the fact that you can use shadows, you can use the actor's ability to use their eyes and their hands to get across the feelings. And I'm like I don't need a lot of effects to do that.
Yeah.
I'm watching it, and it's like I watch a Turner Classic Movies, and I'm watching all these like great film noir movies. I'm getting caught up in that whole genre, and I'm like, wow, look at all these new eyes. I watch it like every time they have a film noir kind of collection. I'm like, oh, I love it. I just drawn to it. I just like the use of shadows. And
I'm with you on that. I need to watch, like, soak up more of them, like and watch more of those. But I'm with you on that too, especially when there's something so beautiful about black and white too. Like it really strips away a lot of some of the distraction. Like you really focus on composition and things like that when you're in that world. There's you're reminding me too, like I don't always love to watch movies that are slow burns, or even TV shows that are slow burns. But kind of what you're reminding me of is, it's like there's been films and things like that where it's like, or even books where they're more of a slow burn, where it's not hitting you. You know what I mean? It's not quite so. Yeah, and it's interesting because sometimes those are the ones that I really ponder and think about. And later I'm like, wow, I'm really glad I watched that. Even though maybe while I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, entertain me more. You know what I mean? But it's like, no, the ones that kind of really stick in your head and you have to ponder a little bit. Like I'm like, oh, that was really great. One of my favorite films, actually, I'll mention, and I'm curious, Phantom, if you have not like the one. I hate that question so much when people are like, what's your one favorite? And I'm like, I have too many. I have way too many. But there's a film that stuck with me, and it's called Babette's Feast. And like, if somebody would have told me what the movie was about, like my friend, she recommended it. She's like, you like to cook, you should watch this movie. And I sat down and I watched it. And what the movie is about, it's about a cook, and she cooks. That's the premise. and and it's one of those, it's very subtle, it's very quiet, and it's about the character's journey and how she changed while doing this. And
Oh,
it's beautiful,
more subtle than
and it's very subtle, and it's very lovely, and but it stuck with me. Like the visuals, like kind of like what you were talking about, the visuals, the cinematography. I mean, the beaches, it's a period piece, and like they have these windswept beaches and women in like these huge dresses, and
Mhm.
but they also show a lot of food preparation, and there's just candles burning, and just it's a very romantic. The movie's not like romantic, but it's romantic in that way where it's like this is the filmmaker loved telling stories and telling just those beautiful small moments, which
Yeah, sometimes like the life that doesn't hit you over the head.
Mhm.
That maybe it's like it's the process of them learning something, and then they've got the repetitive nature of their
Yeah.
their
Well,
cooking, and you see a build up over time, or maybe their maturity or something like that.
well,
But
and this is a thing too. And my friend had to tell me, Catherine, she's like, Paul, that's a thing. And I was like, what? And she's like, what you're talking about? And I was like, she's like, it's called slice of life anime. Like, she's like, this is the thing. You can Google it. And like, there's animes that are doing everything that we're talking about, where it's like, they're
it's not
preparing.
something hit you over the head like it's some super
Yeah.
villain, ghost, demon, big like good versus evil thing. It's actually like a human story.
I feel like Studio Ghibli does a lot of that, where it's
Yeah,
like,
they're into that.
yeah, yeah, which I'm not always looking for that. Sometimes I'm definitely looking for like where's the demon that's gonna come out, and I gotta slay the demon. But
Yeah.
what about you? I shared a movie that kind of stood out to me. What
What's
about you?
like Orson Welles in Touch of Evil? Just kinda like the nature of evil. I don't know if you've ever seen Touch
I
of Evil.
haven't. I haven't.
Touch of
No.
Evil is like he plays a corrupt detective,
Ah, okay.
and it shows like how corrupt and evil you can be if you actually are a detective trying to frame somebody.
Oh, that sounds fun.
And he actually is like shows like he really like the scenes with him, they kind of focus on he had become overweight. Orson Welles wasn't in his best shape, but he took advantage of kind of like he purposely made himself seem kind of grotesque, kind of overweight, kind of like bad aspects of a bad cop who's overweight with a cigar, being overbearing, kind of judgmental, and he's being a little racist against this guy who's a Mexican guy
Okay.
or a Latino guy, and he's like he's basically framing him. And the whole thing is like how what happens when you have that authority and you abuse it, and then it's in black and white, and it's like it just the angles and the
Interesting.
darkness, and there's a lot of foreshadowing of like bad things with the shadows.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like that's why I just love the way the film director and Orson did it. I don't think he actually directed, but he was being an actor in this one.
He was
It
working
was
as a
just
performer. That's interesting.
it's just really amazing compared to Citizen Kane, which I like a lot. But I like the way he everybody talks about Citizen Kane, but Touch of Evil is just amazing how he and Third Man's good too. I like Third Man, but
I have seen Citizen Kane, obviously for so many reasons. Like it is like you said, the one everyone speaks about. I have not seen A Touch of Evil, or The Third Man, but I'll have to again, like I should brush up on some of these things. My little brother tells me all the time, he's like, you're an actor and you haven't seen so
I
many
did
movies.
I get caught up in some of that old stuff. But then I have another favorite that'll just jump out is I like The Man with No Name, like the Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns where like you have
I feel like I think I
the
have
good,
seen
the
that.
bad, and the ugly, like a few dollars more, a fistful
Yeah.
of dollars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the trilogy of the Sergio Arnaz, and it's like in him is he basically doesn't say that much in these movies. He's kind of like this man with no name, and there's a lot of acting without saying anything.
I
And
feel like
and
Clint Eastwood could definitely pull that off too.
and he's really good at it.
Yes, I feel like he's very good at that sort of stoic.
It's just a
Yeah,
stoicism. It's like the
yeah.
spaghetti western, and he's kind of like everybody's a bad guy. Everybody's like an outlaw. Everybody's the anti-hero. There's no real good character in these movies. That's why I like it, but it's like this total anti-hero. They're all bad.
I mean, I mean, give me a good anti-hero. I dig it. I also really like to, I feel like I see this more nowadays too, like especially in books and stuff, is give me that unreliable narrator where it's like, I can't really trust what you're telling me is going on because you're a little crazy. Like
That's cool.
it
Yeah,
can be,
I like narration is cool. I like when you have that third
yeah.
person
Yeah,
narration.
where it can be really bad too. Like it can, if it's done poorly, it's like,
Like
oh,
Peter Gunn, it'd be like a Peter Gunn thing, you know. He's just like,
yes.
or the Saint, like he's always like narrating himself.
Which the Saint you're talking about oh my gosh, what is
Roger
his name?
Moore. Roger
Yes.
Moore used to do these like he would narrate like in the middle of people talk like nobody could hear him.
Yep.
You
That
get
is
this narration.
which it
That's like
works
a
in a
third.
book. It works really well in a book. I don't some movies I don't know. I don't know
Kind
if
of
you
weird to look at now.
I really thought that they did it really well. I've been watching on Netflix. It just came their fifth and final season came out. It's that TV show called You. It's like a
Oh yeah.
serial killer show. Uh and I really like how they do the voiceover because they actually do quite a bit of what we're talking about, where it's like the characters are literally like interacting, and then all of a sudden you'll hear his thoughts while they're, and then they'll keep talking like it. They do it really tight, really well.
Version. Yeah, there's a way to
Yeah.
do it where it doesn't seem jarring. And it
Well,
actually
or hokey. Like I feel like it can be really hokey, where it's just like
doesn't work right. Yeah.
it's well, and I'm such a, and I've been maybe trained in this too, but like I'm not I've worked I'm not necessarily a writer. I'm not a writer, I guess, but it's that thing where it's like show me, don't tell me. Like, and I feel like sometimes that narration thing can
Yeah,
really
if you
be
over narrate when you actually could do it with
when
like
you actually could
nonverbal
when you
stuff.
could do it because oftentimes it can be used like as a crutch where it's like actually if you show me that instead of telling me what you're like, yeah, it's usually a better way
It's like a
to
direction point of view. Like, it's like, is the director not trusting the audience to get it? Or are they not thinking they're skilled enough to actually show it?
bingo. It's so much of it comes down to that thing of like trusting that your audience is intelligent, kind of to what we're saying about the cartoons too, where it's like actually there's a lot of kids that would enjoy not being spoken down to because they're smart.
Yeah, I
Like
remember I watched like watch a Popeye, watch a Felix the Cat, watch the Warner Brothers cartoons. Nobody thought the kids would well, it actually weren't meant they weren't actually being done for kids. And maybe that's
yes,
the problem.
yes.
Those cartoons were really at the movies as like they were like little clips before the movie. And then they became cartoons for the kids, but they
And then
really
they
weren't
became,
meant for
but
kids.
they weren't necessarily, that wasn't originally what they were made for. I see what you're saying. I see what
I
you're
think that's
saying.
the problem is then people started doing like the 1970 cartoons that they thought were specifically for kids. And it is like, okay, is that really, I mean, I thought the Scooby Doo's were cool because they tried to do something interesting and they weren't talking down to the kids. They've had these old murder mysteries.
I
That
like it. I like it.
that
Yeah,
wasn't really talking down to the kids, but then you get this period where things become really hokey by the 80s.
exactly. Well, and there's different age groups too. I mean, um, I should look that up and see like what is Scooby Doo? Like what is the
It's like
what
the
is
70s. It's like more of
it,
this.
it was made in the 70s, but what was the like how there's some well, especially nowadays too. Like there's literally adult cartoons where it's like, like
Like yeah,
like
they're like the
like the
kind
Simpsons. The Simpsons
yeah,
is not
that's
made
not
for
really
little.
meant for
That's
kids.
not
That's
for
not
little
meant for
kids.
kids.
No,
Yeah,
like it's definitely not. Uh, oh gosh, what's that other one? The super popular one. Why can't I think of it? It has the grandpa who's the scientist guy, and I'm
oh,
laughing about that. I can't think of the name of this.
oh, I
People,
know what you're
I'm
talking
gonna
about.
get hate mail for not remembering this.
Yeah, I see.
Um, and they go on great adventures and all that great. Anyway, it's gonna come to me here in a moment. Rick and Morty. Rick
Rick
and
and Morty,
Morty.
yeah,
Yes,
that's the Adult Swim stuff.
that's the
You know,
Adult Swim stuff, and that's definitely not made for kids. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that thought, but
yeah, because I think it's
yeah,
interesting because like I say, even like Popeye, maybe it was meant for kids, but it's like if you watch those cartoons, there's so much going detail in the animation,
yeah,
and there's
yeah.
so much like going on with the interplay. The stories are like it's not really, even the Tom and Jerry cartoons, the classic ones.
Mhm.
There's a lot going on in those, and they're actually making statements. There actually was this one that was kind of about like capitalism. There's one that's kind of famous that people point out there's a Tom and Jerry clip where he's like trying to impress this girl and this girl cat, and he's buying all this stuff and trying to do this stuff, and there's this billionaire cat comes in and sweeps him away from him, and he can't even. And the guy just runs over his car. He spent all this money working 4 or 5 jobs to get this car, and this billionaire cat drives in with this crazy car and crushes.
And just kind of crushes his car.
Crushes his car.
Yeah, and that I do really appreciate that kind of stuff. Like we've been saying, it's interesting to see some of that commentary coming. I mean, through all the different decades and stuff like that. Yeah, that's
is how we can
it's interesting.
And what I love about the arts is like when you take a role, like you can take your impression of what the writer, how he wrote the character, but then you're gonna bring that character to life with your own vision, right?
Yeah, with the help of like the director and have some hopefully have some fun in there too. Yeah, it's yeah, no, it's an interesting thing being an actor too, and it's an interesting thing. I mean, that's obviously in the back of my mind too these days. Is I mean, when you're an actor, you have control like in between. The writer's giving you what the writer really has the message or the voice, I guess, and as an actor, unless if you're improvising quite a bit, you could, it depends on what the project is, but yeah. And there's a lot of room for everything that you're talking about, everything that we're talking about. There's a lot of room for those in between, because we have a script and we follow that, but there is a lot of room for interpretation on how things are said and obviously those moments in between. So there's
frame, you're like if you like frame your facial aspect, you kind of give that character its unique kind of aspect. They like becomes a keynote of this character.
Yes.
This thing, and if you kind of take it, it's like, well, I'm going to give him this kind of edge, and I'm going to make it do these things, this thing with my eyes, or do this thing that something happens. Then you bring your own unique like take on it that maybe it wasn't fully there, but you brought it. Like, and it wasn't in the words, but you could actually bring it out in the actions and the visual.
It's when not 100% sure why I'm thinking of this, but something in what you're saying is reminding me of I did a film in Chicago several years ago, and I played a character who he was odd. Like you just weren't sure if he was maybe the killer or maybe he wasn't, or, and all those questions. But I remember getting on set. There wasn't a lot of time with the director. Like we didn't have a ton of rehearsal time, but I remember getting on set and we were shooting in Chicago, and the director came up to me after like 1 or 2 takes, and he's like, your character needs, like, he's like, I'm just going to give you, he's like, I want to see what happens. Something just needs to immediately know that there's something about you, for visually. So he had me use a limp throughout the entire film. And it was interesting. It wasn't like a negative. It wasn't like, this is a bad thing. It just is like,
to get my character trait, they just give something unique.
He just said he wanted to, he didn't explain all of it to me, but for some reason it made sense. Like I was like, yeah, I get where he was wanting to go with that, and it was a very visual decision. Like it's one of those decisions I probably wouldn't have made as a performer without really talking to him. So it was an interesting piece. I don't know.
It's strange. Like you can bring, different aspects to kind of bring something out. Like in music, we'll have things like the headroom. We talk about headroom, of like what is going to get brought to the front.
Can you tell me what I have a brother who's a musician. He's gonna, if he listens to this, he's gonna be giving me grief. But what is headroom? I'm not sure if I know what that is.
Like when you have different instruments and you want things to get heard. Like so, you have some instruments might take up most of the bandwidth. Like if you have a big bass sound, it might take up.
Sure.
So that bass sound. So if you have like an ensemble cast and somebody's kind of really kicking it off, where they're going to become more noticeable than somebody else.
Got it.
Different instruments in a piece that has multiple instruments, you can bring something, you bring a bass forward, or you can bring the timpani forward, you can bring the violin forward, you can bring the guitar forward, and then you make choices on what you want to emphasize at different moments in the song. So songs are very short, but we can make choices of what we're going to emphasize every second of that song.
And you're talking about like when you're mastering it, or is it when you're
We're kind of
when you're
engineering
recording it?
recording and engineering. I mean, you can
Both. Okay.
purposely do that at the beginning and at the back end.
I
So,
love it.
so at the beginning, you could have certain movements, and then later you could actually emphasize or de-emphasize those things. When you start thinking about like, how do I want this to be interpreted? And I would think like when you're working in film or TV or plays, like you want to emphasize certain things, so you're going to bring things forward or change the volume of your voice or change where the lighting's going to be or where you're going to be on the scene or where you're going to be in the frame. So, I'm saying you make emphasis points.
I like it. It reminds me very much of it's that creative process. Obviously, like what I was sharing with the director wanted me to stand out, obviously, kind of like what you're talking about. And then also in the editing room, it's a lot like mastering too, where it's like there's a lot of control over that too, like emphasizing certain things. So I'm gonna
how you
cut it. Yeah.
You could rezoom, you could zoom somewhere where it wasn't there,
So I'm gonna use that phrase now. It's like, oh, give me more headroom.
Hey, the musicians will know.
The musicians in the room will know. It's like, give me headroom, people. Give me headroom.
There's more headroom on that. Yeah, because famous like the Moog used to be known for like the big Moog sounds or like these analog synths were known to take too much headroom. So they started like reducing their use because they would take up too much of the space. And digital synths are more tinny or less present.
Yeah.
So they would put something in that doesn't have as much character. But sometimes something has that overwhelming character. You have to make judgments about like, do you have something that's overwhelming or something that's a little bit more nuanced?
I love that. That feels like something a director's asked me before. He's like, or I've asked the director, I'm like, do you want this bigger? Do you want it more in your face? Or I've definitely done that.
That's the whole thing about art is like how you present, your case. Like every second of the performance is like a chance to, tell your story. So the musicians are everybody. I think like creative, like we're telling a story in some way. It might be a little microcosm of a story or a bigger platform, but you're trying to get that across, and so you have a certain amount of time to kind of get that hook in. So if you're an actor and you're on, do you have like that hook time to like get people to really believe it, to really understand what you're trying to get across?
Sometimes you got it. Yeah. No, I'm with you. I don't know. I have any more to add to that because it's kind of the whole. The one thing with acting, and I'm pretty sure with music too, is I show up and do my part, but it's not like, it's kind of like, it's what we're talking about. It's a team effort. Like if the director has to do his part, the lighting guys have to do their part, the editor has to do their part. And it's an interesting process, I guess, or process.
It must be weird sometimes not to know what the full picture is when you're doing it. So is that a hindrance or does it matter? Like if you don't know what it really is going to end up being, what the final cut is going to look like, does that impact how you do it? Like on a re-edit, like you reshoot, then you're like, oh, well, this is what they were trying to do.
I haven't really had to do. I'm trying to think if I've ever had to reshoot anything. I have been like a replacement for an actor, which makes me very sad for that actor. Because I would be so sad if I shot something and they had to replace me with someone else because I just wasn't able to deliver. But yeah, as far as reshoots go, I think it's been pretty rare. Like usually, like, have we shot something that's like, oh, we're going to do it a little different way tomorrow or something like that? Yes. Yeah. Absolutely have done that. But in general too, like, with the exception of a handful of films, that have huge budgets, because that's a little bit of a luxury. And I know that probably is for recording in the studio for musicians too.
How many versions you get to do? Like when you're filming, how many different ways of doing something do you like? As we'll do maybe like back in the old days, you could do like 100 versions of something.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, people, maybe if they're doing it at home, they can do as many as they want. But if you're in studio time, time is money, and
Time is money. Yeah. And time is
you
still,
know, do a couple
yeah.
versions, but not like 100 versions.
Time is still money, not quite like it was. Like this is going to age me quite a bit, but right, some of the first films that I did were shot on film, and that was so nerve-wracking because that was big money, big money to shoot on film. Now that it's digital, you can shoot as much as you want generally, but you still have all the things that we're talking about. You still have that the time is money. Everybody on set is money. You know what I mean? And
You're not going to keep on running like
we're not going to keep
take 10, take 11, take 20, take 40.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely worked on some film projects where we've done, 20, 30 takes or something for a scene, or like
they're trying to get something, but they're trying to get something and they don't see it.
Well, it's some of it's just really technical where it's just like, oh, you know what, that we're trying to match this to match with something else, or
so they get it right.
And it might not even be it might just be that thing too where it's like we're getting good stuff, so let's just keep trying at it, and see where
as many versions
goes,
as we can, so when we go, we don't have to reshoot. Then we got all these different
coverage, exactly.
Yeah, it's like when musicians, like when you go get lead guitar players, they'll do multiple lead solos, and then they'll go and they'll work with the recording engineer and the producer to like pick which one they think they're actually going to use.
Yeah,
and they'll have tons of them, and then you're like,
yes.
which one is going to work? And then he's kind of like the genius of the producers to say, well, this one's really going to hook.
Well, and
this one's not.
Yeah. No, and there's and I probably should wrap this up maybe with this last little story, but it's this is about the movie Abroad, actually, which is kind of fun. But we shot at an airport in Duluth, Minnesota. It's not like it's a small airport, but it's not like tiny. Like it's like they actually had to go through some hoops to shoot there. And we shot overnight, and my character in the film, it's like I'm in the first shot of the movie, but I work at a desk at the airport, and in the movie it's nighttime. It's nighttime. The first thing we see is the couple flying in from South Korea, and they're getting off the airplane, and it's night. And it's very important that for continuity, it stays nighttime.
We can't go into daytime.
Yeah. And so we shot overnight, and they shot everything leading up to my character at the desk. And I want to say that it was around maybe 5 a.m. that I finally got my call into set. And so I had been there all night, which that happens, that's the nature of things. So I go on set, and we shoot a few things, and then all of a sudden everyone was like, we have got to go. And I was like, what's happening? And the director turns to me, he's like, the sun is coming up. And he's like, and they literally said, they were like, Paul, we need you to get your scene in
like
right now. And they were shouting, they were like yelling at the art department. They're like, duck, like they were in the back of the shot, and they were like, duck. And they turned the camera on me, and they were like, okay, Paul, go, action. And you could see because there was like there was windows right above where I was shooting. I could see this, you could see the light was starting to, and it's like you couldn't cover the windows. Like they were, it was go time. And this is where you earn your money as a performer. Cause I was just like, I got this. And we shot it, and
you
hit it. And it was, for me as a performer, it was like rock on. I delivered. Also, I was a little bummed because I was like, I wish we would have been able to do, because had the sun not been coming through,
more versions,
we could have done some more versions, and me and the other actors probably would have. I like to, once you get one in the can, like I like to play a little bit. So it's a bummer that occurred that way, but I have no control over that, and neither does anybody else. It's just like, the sun's coming up. We can't.
It's one of those reality things.
It's one of those reality things, and they're not going to be able to go and reshoot there because of the schedule and just everything. So, I mean, but it was a great experience, and the film actually came out amazing. I hope that people that are listening will check it out and
Yeah,
watch
I'm
it.
gonna check. I check out all like I said, I'm a big fan of Korean movies and
Yes, yeah.
Eastern movies and anything that's
Well,
coming.
this one, like to your point, this one technically is very like American English, but it has actors in it that are they're
Okay.
both South Korean, and there's a
South
lot of
Korean
South
actors.
Korean dialogue in it.
I probably know who they are since I watch so much.
You
So I'll
might,
probably,
you
yeah,
might,
probably,
yeah. I know they work in South Korea, so you might, yeah.
yeah. If I watch so many dramas, I'll recognize them immediately once I see it. But like,
Yeah.
I want to thank you for being here. We have IamPaulCram.com. We recommend people click on that. That's gonna be fully clickable. We've
Oh,
been
cool.
live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We'll be on Spotify Video Podcast, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Podcast by tomorrow. I want to thank you for being a guest on the Family Electric Coach podcast.
I want to thank you for having me on, and it's been a really fun conversation with you, Phantom.
Thank you.